What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and unit review of Rearmed Plumeria, Ascended Ced, Febail Fee, and Patty. So Rearmed Plumeria is definitely going to be the star of this batch because of being a dancer and also a rearmed unit who can provide arcane euphoria to other blue mages. I made a full guide on the best users of this weapon, and this time she is a blue mage flyer, and arcane euphoria does give her -1 special cooldown. And at start of combat, if her HP is at or above 25%, then she can get +5 to all of her stats, guaranteed follow-up attack, which is really good because she's extremely slow, and then also true damage based on 15% of units attack stat, including the AoE specials. And then finally, she can also get 30% damage reduction from foes' first attack. So overall, it's a pretty decent weapon for a high attack unit and high resistance unit like Plumeria, but it doesn't really provide any kind of support for a dancer, but she's definitely not lacking when it comes to support with her assist in Clawing Dreams Plus. So this allows her to refresh an ally and also give them +5 to all of their stats as a visible buff, and also the charge status and the foe penalty doubler status, which is really good. And especially with the prime skill that we have got, it is going to be really good to get these extra status effects by using Plumeria's Dance. And she also inflicts -5 debuff to all stats of the opponent on the nearest foes within 5 spaces of the target ally through their next action. So this is going to be the main reason why Plumeria is a really good rearmed unit, because not only she can provide good fodder, but she herself is a really good support dancer with Clawing Dreams Plus. The charge status is really good for increasing the mobility, but keep in mind that it's counted as a warping movement, so it can be stopped by Gatekeeper or Legendary Myr. But still, this is amazing support, and foe penalty doubler status is going to be really helpful with defense res ploy in her base kit and also with the debuffs that she can inflict. So this assist does provide a lot of support, and then she also has Wings of Mercy 4, which is amazing fodder and useful on any kind of Gale Force unit or any kind of dancer. And this is really good on a rearmed unit because you can fodder her for this skill and not lose her as a unit and still get the support out of her assist. She also brings Stillwater 4, which is good for triggering the resistance check of the Ploy skill, and Defense Res Ploy 3 is the new skill that we have got now. So at start of player phase or enemy phase, it can trigger on any kind of foe that is within 3 spaces or 3 columns centered on Plumeria that have less resistance than Plumeria's resistance +5. And this can inflict the Ploy status on them as well as the -7 defense and resistance debuff. Now, Ploy status is a new status that we have got, and it neutralizes the visible bonus doubler status, the treachery status, and the grand strategy status. It doesn't really disable these status if it's built in the weapon of a unit, for example, like Fallen Ike. But if you give grand strategy from something like Legendary Male Robin, then that kind of visible status is going to be getting neutralized. It's the same thing with Duo Thor, where with her Duo button, she can erase the visible status of the opponents. But with the Ploy status, you're basically going to be neutralizing the 3 status effects in the combat. So this is really helpful for facing a lot of the Legendary Male Robins, and he's easily one of the best support units in the game. But after this, he's definitely going to be struggling in something like Aether Raids offense or Aether Raids defense, and also in arena. But in Summoner Duels, I don't think it's going to be enough to really kill him. But in Aether Raids offense, it is going to be a bit annoying to use Legendary Eliwood and Legendary Male Robin, because you can always expect the top tier defense teams to have this kind of ploy skill. And it can also be useful on your own Aether Raids offense team, but obviously in the Astro season, it is going to be a bit annoying because you're going to be facing Freyr, who's just going to be cleansing any kind of debuff. So it is going to be useful in any kind of season in Aether Raids, but definitely not against Freyr because he can just cleanse that kind of debuff. And in Summoner Duels, it can be a bit annoying with the map layout, and if the enemy's units pretty much use their action, then they're going to be getting rid of the Ploy status. So we're probably going to be getting Ploy status on like a Duo or Harmonic unit, and that's when it is going to be a lot more influential for Summoner Duels. But until then, this is definitely going to be helpful in Aether Raids and also in Arena, competitively speaking. And it also inflicts the exposure status on the enemies, so that just allows your entire team to take advantage of it and do 10 true damage per attack on any kind of opponent that is inflicted with the exposure status. So it can give you better damage output and also disable some really annoying supportive effects. And I've already faced a lot of Ploy skills in Aether Raids, so this is definitely going to be a skill that you're going to be seeing even more as time goes on. And the fact that it's available on a rearmed unit is really amazing. Now, this kind of Ploy skill is going to be useful on any kind of high resistance unit who wants to provide support to their team. And you can get Stillwater 4 at the same time if you fodder off Tea Time Tail 2. So it is a pretty good combination to inherit. and you can definitely inherit the entire kit of hers when you're going to be foddering her. And you can definitely use this on a lot of units. It's hard to go over every single unit, but I'm going to be going over some of the units that are going to be making great use of this skill. And I did cover a good amount of them in my Arcane Euphoria guide, so this is going to be a bit different. So like I said before, this is going to be amazing for Aether Raids offense and defense. So a defense mythic like Arvel, who already wants to stack up resistance with their slotty skill, is going to be making good use of this kind of ploy skill by running Stillwater. And on a Bridal Catcher team, Magical Null follow-up is going to be really helpful for shredding through that damage reduction. And Gatekeeper did get a weapon refined recently, and even though he doesn't really have as much resistance as many of the other units, you can still use this at like higher investment with Resistance Ivy and Dragon Flowers and everything. And he can basically use the double Fortress Defense Res so that he can soak the Dark Shrines while still providing amazing support with his weapon, with his Slot B skill, and also his Slot C skill. And this is going to be requiring the resistance check, so that's why stacking up more resistance is always going to be helpful. You can also run this on Cornelia, and she already uses her resistance for her weapon, so this can be a pretty good skill that she can run in her Slot C and do even more damage, and also just provide more support to her teammates. You can also use this on Aether Raids offense units like Air. A lot of people did plus and merge her because she was the first mythic unit, and she did get a lot of reruns over the years. So if you're trying to make use of her on like a Gale Force team or a player face team, then you can use her as a smite bot, and you can basically increase the utility that she provides by using defense res Ploy 3 so that you can disable the grand strategy of the opposing Legendary Male Robins, and also at the same time you can use the Temari Dagger to debuff the opponent's attack and speed while you debuff defense and resistance. So it is something you can consider if she's one of your core mythics. Duo Mark is also an amazing unit who can make use of this ploy skill because of his high resistance and the fact that he can already debuff the opponent's stats and also debuff them with a lot of the visible status effects like guard, isolation, stall status, and also the sabotage status. So this is another way of providing more support with his Slot C skill and having the ploy status on the enemy while also disabling their other status effects. You can also use this on Brave Soren because he's a really versatile unit and he can be useful for his utility, so you can just run Ruptured Sky as a 1 cooldown special that he can easily trigger with his weapon, and instead run Defense Res Ploy 3 so that he can support your allies with his high resistance. Again, Temari Dagger is amazing with Defense Res Ploy 3, and this could be done on many of the Dagger Dancers that have enough resistance to run something like this, and they also have access to Firestorm Dance 3 now, which is going to be giving them with the Canto effect, so they can retreat and also provide even more support. And it can also be used on high resistance arena units like Legendary Lilina and Legendary Deidra. For Legendary Lilina, it is also going to be helpful for her because she can do even more damage with her AoE special, and Legendary Deidra is in the same season as Legendary Male Robin, so it could be helpful in arena. If you're going to be building up Plumeria, then her base kit is already really good, and you just need to stack up resistance on her. So Phantom Resistance can be a good skill along with the Ploy skill so that you can have a better resistance check, and you can of course refine her weapon to give her even more resistance. And Glimmer is going to be a good special that she can run because of her high attack stat, and also the fact that you're going to be debuffing the opponent's resistance, so it can be helpful to do more damage. And she does have pretty high resistance herself to make use of the Ploy skill, so she can be a really good support dancer. And if you want to debuff them for another status effect, then Sabotage AR3 is something that you can run in her Slot B and provide even more support to your team. And obviously whenever Sabotage attack speed comes out, that is going to be a bit better skill because there is the overlap of the resistance debuff from her Slot B and Slot C skill, but with the foe penalty doubler effect that she can give from her assist, it is going to be a really good thing to stack up that effect along with the sabotage effect on the enemy. And keep in mind that the foe penalty doubler effect does stack up with the weapons that have the Plagian effect or the Vulture effect. So if you're trying to make use of the debuffs on any kind of your allies, then this could be the way of going about things. And then if you want to do the standard Flying Dancer shenanigans, then you can definitely give her Guidance 4 or Soaring Guidance and also run Firestorm Dance 3. With this kind of build, she's not really going to be using her resistance that much, but if you want to get the warping support and also the desperation effect from Firestorm Dance, then it could be an option, and she can easily use this with aerobatics so that she can get around easily and then retreat with the Canto 1 of Firestorm Dance. Ascended Ced is a green infantry mage this time as well, and he has got aired Forseti as his preferred weapon. This provides him with -1 special cooldown, and at start of turn, if his HP is at or above 25%, then he can give himself the +6 attack and speed buff for 1 turn and also gets -1 special cooldown. So this is really helpful, and it's kind of similar to Duo Thor, how she can basically pulse herself down every single turn. And this doesn't really count if the special is at maximum cooldown or not. So with this kid, you can easily charge up his AoE special by the start of turn 2, which is good for the self-sufficiency. And then at start of combat, if his HP is again at or above 25%, he can get the in-combat attack and speed +6, and also 30% damage reduction from foe's first attack. And then finally, he deals true damage based on X% of his speed whenever his special triggers. And this is going to be applicable for any kind of AoE special, and this easily makes him one of the strongest AoE ranged nukers in the game, because this true damage can actually go really high, because you're going to be taking his maximum special cooldown count, multiplying it by 10 and then adding by 20. So with the AoE specials, you're basically going to be able to do 50% of true damage based on his speed, which is quite a lot. So this is kind of similar to Hatari Karla, except for the fact that he's a range unit and he's going to be targeting the resistance of the enemies. And even though we have a lot of nukes, when it comes to range nuking with AoE specials, Ascended Ced is definitely going to be coming out on top because of the true damage that he can get from his weapon. And he also has pretty good attack stat at base 45 and good speed at base 46. He also has a super boon in attack, which can help him even more with the AoE damage. And he's mainly going to be used with the AoE specials, but weirdly enough, he does come with attack speed ideal 4, which doesn't really go too well with AoE nuking because you want to get the visible attack. So if he had life and death, that would have been a lot better. But he does come with special spiral 4, so this can give you the extra 5 true damage whenever your special triggers. And this is going to be applied on the AoE specials as well. And if you're going to be using any kind of non-AoE special, then you can also pierce through the damage reduction with special spiral 4, which is really helpful. And this can also help him loop the specials, and he also brings a new gift for a lot of infantry units in the form of Infantry Pulse 4. So the tier 4 version of Infantry Pulse has changed a bit. Now it is pretty much Time Pulse 3 for the unit itself who's running the skill. Previously, Infantry Pulse only worked at the start of turn 1, but that is not the case with the tier 4 version of the skill, which is going to be working at start of every single turn. And the tier 4 version does count the maximum HP of the unit that is running the skill, which is a lot better than the current HP that used to be required on Infantry Pulse 3. Now with the tier 4 version, you have to also keep in mind that the unit that is running the skill can also make use of the skill themselves, because it does provide the unit themselves the -1 special cooldown. And that is really good because they don't really have to choose between Time Pulse 3 or Infantry Pulse anymore, and this is going to be amazing for Aether Raids offense or just for any kind of Gale Force team. And if you're going to be using this on any kind of high HP support unit, then they can also benefit from this skill. So let's go for some of the good users of this skill, and easily one of the best options in the game is going to be Garrick, because he can already pulse himself down and the allies with his Desert Tiger Axe, and he has got an amazing weapon refine. And with Infantry Pulse 4, he can pulse himself down even more, so if you just provide him with something like Asker support or anything like that, then he's going to be having a 2 cooldown Gale Force, which is really good. And then you can even run this with like Quick and Pulse Sacred Seal if you don't really want to trigger Flashing Blade. And Duochrome is also one of those units who can double down on the special support by using his assist and also now using Infantry Pulse 4. So he can essentially have a pre-charged Deadeye by using his assist and this skill, and you can also use this in Arena if you do have him at high investment or max investment. And because of Infantry Pulse 4 being a 300 SP passive, he can easily run this with other 300 SP passives and score really well in Arena. And Brave Marianne is going to be one of those units who is going to be used a lot in any kind of Gale Force team. So she can provide herself this kind of support and also the other infantry units. And because she's a non-mythic unit, she's going to be getting even more HP out of the mythic support. And she is basically a pseudo dancer, so this is going to be an amazing skill for her. And again, doubling down on the special support is something you can do with Veluria as well. And before we got Garrick, Veluria used to be the go-to unit for a lot of Gale Force teams, so you can easily run this on her as well. And Duo Alphonse is often an underrated unit even after his weapon refine. And keep in mind that he does give -2 special cooldown with his Duo button, so this could be amazing for arena usage and for summoner duels usage. And if you do run him with Infantry Pulse 4, then you can also get Special Spiral 4 at the same time from Ascended Ced. And then finally, just like Brave Marianne, any kind of dancer who has got special charges in their weapon like Arcane Xiang, Arcane Devourer, or Arcane Downfall, then they can easily make use of Infantry Pulse 4 on a Gale Force team and run Gale Force themselves so that they can pulse themselves down and also their allies. If you're going to be building up Ascended Ced, then you should definitely get rid of the attack speed ideal skill on him if you're going to be using him for the AoE nuking, and just run Life and Death 3 from like 4-star Soth. And this is going to be much better when you're going to be running an AoE special like Blazing Wind. And you can also use the new Squad A seal so that you can have extra HP for Infantry Pulse and also for the visible stats. And keep in mind that because he's an Ascended unit, he does have a free Ascended asset, and you're not going to be spending any kind of floret by ascending his asset, so attack asset can be helpful for AoE nuking. And then if you do get him with like plus speed IV or plus attack IV, then you can just ascend the other offense and also run the tier 4 version of Life and Death, which we have been given before in the limited ephemera manual this year itself with Layla. And if you want to have more range on your AoE special, then the Growing Wind is something that you can run. And the Growing specials do have more range, but they have less damage output. So because of the fact that he can get so much true damage from his weapon, you can still run a Growing special for just having larger range, and you can affect even more enemies. But if you want to get the 1.5 multiplier on the AoE special, then the Blazing Wind that he comes with is already pretty good. And then if you want to use him without any kind of AoE special, then Luna is something that you can run, and you can easily loop it with Special Spiral 4, and you can easily pre-charge it with his weapon and Infantry Pulse on turn 1. With the AoE specials, you can easily charge it up yourself by the start of turn 2, which is fine for Summoner Duels usage in my opinion, and it's not that hard to provide one external cooldown support on an infantry unit like him. And because he's going to be doing a lot of damage with his weapon, we can stack up even more true damage with the Finish Kill and Special Spiral 4 to pierce through the damage reduction. Keep in mind that he doesn't really pierce the damage reduction with his AoE specials because that's not how Special Spiral 4 works. But if that's something you want to do, then you can run Luna. And then if you want to stack up more damage reduction, then Remote Sparrow is something that you can run. And because he's really fast, you can also make use of Magical Null Follow-Up, especially if you use them with Brattle Katria. And you can also run a special like Flare that can give him the healing, and also it pretty much functions like a better Luna. Febail is going to be color sharing with Rearmed Plumeria, and he does come with a preferred weapon, an Aired Ufel. So this does give him -1 special cooldown, and if he initiates combat, or if he's within 2 spaces of an ally, then he's able to get +5 to all of his stats, and gets even more attack and speed depending on 25% of foe's attack at start of the combat, subtracted by 8. So the foe needs to have 72 attacks so that he can get the max 10 offenses out of this. And he also has the Null Guard effect, or the offensive tempo effect, which allows him to ignore any kind of guard skill of the enemies. So that makes a really good effect on a nuke with -1 special cooldown. And then he can also get 30% damage reduction from foe's first attack. And after the combat, he's able to heal up 7 HP. So overall, this weapon is pretty decent, and his offenses are going to be good enough to nuke with this weapon with base 46 attack and base 45 speed. And he does come with speed resistance Hexblade and also physical null follow-up. So if you're trying to fodder him off, then these two skills can be inherited at the same time if you make use of Lapis for the Sorcery Blade and also Lumera for null follow-up. And speed resistance Hexblade is not the greatest skill because Hexblade status does give you the adaptive damage, and with this kind of status you want to get the extra attack. So the extra resistance is not the greatest out of this, but physical null follow-up is going to be the best in slot skill for a lot of infantry units because it allows them to pierce through the damage reduction by 50%, and this damage reduction halving is really good along with null follow-up effect and also the speed and defense debuff. And like I said, so many infantry units can make use of this. I can only list like few of them because there's just so many of them that would want this effect. But I guess if you're outsourcing null follow-up at this point, then physical null follow-up might not be too useful to you, but still it's a pretty good option on many of the units that don't have the easiest time triggering specials and piercing through the damage reduction. If you're going to be building a Febail on a budget, then you can simply give him Speed Smoke 3, and this is going to be helping him get the speed debuff and outspeed the subsequent opponent, so it could be an option. And you can also run Blade Session for getting the max offenses because he doesn't really get any kind of attack out of his Slotty skill. And if you're going to be investing a bit more into him, then you can also run Attack Speed Oath 4 as his Slotsy skill so that he can get even more offenses and also get the teleportation. And if you're going to be replacing his Slotty skill, which is something that most Febail enthusiasts are going to be doing, then you can just run Remote Sparrow so that you can stack up even more damage reduction with Aired Ufel. And Time Pulse 4 is also something that you can run with something like Luna or Deadeye and just stack up on his offenses. And finally, you can also run him with the Finish Kill because he does have the Null Guard effect in his weapon. So if you run him with Brattle Katria or Winter Cordelia, in Aether Raids, defense, or summoner duels, then he can easily trigger Deadeye on his Brave attack with something like Attack Speed Pledge. And Attack Speed Pledge is incredible on a unit with Null Guard, so at this kind of high investment, it is something you can do, even though Deadeye and Physical Null Follow-Up do have a bit of an overlap, but still it is going to be helping you pierce through damage reduction, even on the non-Deadeye hits. Fee is the demote of this banner, and she's also a 4-star focus, and she is a sword flyer with Protection Edge Plus, so this is basically a variant of the protection weapons that we've seen, like Protection Pike on Vigard, so it pretty much gives you +5 attack and defense, and also gives you the guard effect in the combat. Overall, a decent weapon, but on someone like Fee, she definitely wants to have a more speed stacking weapon. She also comes with Aerobatics 3 at 5-star and Drive Speed at 4-star. They could have definitely given us something else than Drive Speed, but still getting Aerobatics in the 3-star, 4-star pool is pretty good because we haven't really got that in the Grail pool. And when it comes to her stats, she does have super boons on her attack, speed, and defense, and she does have pretty good speed for a demote in base 45 speed and also base 40 attack, and she can easily be compared to the previous sword flyers in Tanith and Rickard. And as you can see, Fee has a lot more resistance. This would have been a lot better if, Pegasus Flight was a much better skill, but as it stands right now, Guard Bearing 4 and Gambit are simply going to be the better slot B options for many of the flyers that would even want to run Pegasus Flight 4. But still, offensively, she's going to be 1 point faster than Rickard and also having the same attack as him. And if you're going to be building a Fee on a budget, then you can just give her Fury and Moonbow, and Protection Edge Plus can work out on a budget. But if you're going to be investing a bit more into her, then Farmer's Tool Plus from Halloween Kellum is going to be a pretty good option, along with a lot of the skills that you can get from the Divine Codes, like Attack Speed Catch and also Speed Defense Near Trace, and also Attack Speed Oath 4, which is going to be having good synergy with the bonus doubler 4 present in Farmer's Tool Plus. So if you cannot give her the Arcane Devourer, then this is going to be a pretty good option, and Arcane Devourer at the end is going to be the best option that you can run on Fee because it is going to be providing you with -1 special cooldown, +5 to all of your stats, also 40% damage reduction on foe's first attack, the full null follow-up effect, and also special charges on both enemies' hits and your own hits. So that is going to be a bunch of effects that a lot of flyers don't really have easy access to. So getting this weapon is going to be really helpful, and you can just run Gale Force because you're going to be getting special charges out of Arcane Devourer, and Rain Snap is going to be a pretty nice option with the Clash skill so that you can get the extra movement. But Guidance 4 and Soaring Guidance are always going to be the options on these flyers, and she can also be run in Summoner Duels like many of the flyers for a frontliner role. Unfortunately, she doesn't really have as much defense, but still, with the damage reduction of Guard Bearing 4 and Arcane Devourer, she can definitely try and tank some of these speedy threats and deny their doubles, and Attack Speed Unity can be pretty helpful if you're going to be stacking her up with Legendary Male Robin, and she can just provide the Guidance 4 and Soaring Guidance support. And because she does have high resistance, Iceberg could also be an option that you can run with Arcane Devourer because she's going to be getting those special charges, but at this point we have a lot of really good free-to-play flying units who can do the same role, so Fee doesn't really do it extraordinarily better than many of the units. And like I said before, she is someone who can run Pegasus Flight 4 because of her resistance, but at this point Guard Bearing 4 and Gambit are just better when it comes to getting the consistent damage reduction and getting the consistent effects, and it doesn't really have to take you to boost up her visible resistance or boost up her visible speed. You can also run with a full player phase build with Flared Sparrow and aerial maneuvers. Unfortunately, she's not going to be having access to Kanto with this kind of build, but still Gale Force is going to be something that is really good for her with the special charges and also with the dive bomb effect that you can get out of aerial maneuvers. Obviously not her best build, but if you're going to be going all out for the player phase, then this is something you can run. And then finally, because she does have good resistance, she can certainly take on many of the mages, and at max investment you can definitely give her Attack Speed Prime 4 and also run the Oath 4 skill or even the Rain Snap skill so that you can get a visible status effect, and then you can run these support units like Legendary Eliwood, Rearmed Plumeria from this banner, or even Noah, who can provide the dodge status to her. So all of those units are going to be pretty good for the activation of the distant counter effect for her Prime skill, and she can easily run Aether as a healing special. Gambit is also something that she can run even with Arcane Devourer, but Guard Bearing just gives you more damage reduction, so I kind of like it a bit more, even if you're going to be running a high cooldown special, and it really depends on the fodder that you've got. And you can also run the Squad A Sacred Seal to provide her with some more HP and speed and defense. And she is going to be stacking up the damage reduction with Arcane Devourer and Guard Bearing 4. And if you can give her the dodge status from Noah, that is even better. So she can function as an Omni tank if you really want at this kind of max investment. The final unit from this batch is going to be Patty, and she's the hero number 1000 in FEH because of her internal ID. And that is going to be a big milestone for FEH, and she's given out as a free quest reward, but you can also try and plus and merge her from the 3-star 4-star pool. So Patty is a colorless infantry dagger unit with Miasma Dagger Plus, which is the non-seasonal version of Bone Carver Plus. So it does give you plus 5 attack and speed and also deals 7 damage to the target and foes within 2 spaces of the target. So it's a pretty decent weapon, and we haven't really gotten an arcane weapon, so it can still work out on a budget. And she does bring Speed Defense Ideal 3 at 4-star and also Dull Range 3 at 5-star. We already had these skills in the 3-star 4-star pool, so she unfortunately doesn't really bring anything too new. And when it comes to her stat spread, it is pretty good with having good speed at base 45 with a super boon and 41 base attack. And she's surprisingly more physically tanky than a lot of the dagger units because of having that 37 base defense. So it can definitely help her in many of the matchups, especially if you stack up damage reduction on her. She can definitely be compared to the other dagger units that we have gotten before. They're not really colorless, but as you can see, Patty is pretty much going to be up there when it comes to a modern dagger unit with high speed and high offenses. If you're going to be building up Patty on a budget, then you can just give her the Poison Strike 3 and double Savage Blow and stack up the splash damage with Miasma Dagger, and you can even run Moonbow. So everyone did get 2 copies of Patty, and she can be useful in many of the in-game content or limited battles. So this is a pretty easy budget build that you can run. And if you're going to be investing a bit more into her with merges and dragon flowers, then you can certainly give her some of the divine code skills like Attack Speed Ideal and Attack Speed Oath 4. And now follow-up is available on Plumeria and so many of the other units in divine code, so it is something you can easily run. And if you plan on investing on her with premium skills, then Bunny's Egg Plus from Spring Ash is going to be a pretty good option that can give you the extra offenses and also the damage reduction. So you can easily stack it out with Remote Sparrow for getting 51% damage reduction. And you can also run Physical and Follow-Up for damage reduction shredding. And you can just run Ruptured Sky as your special. So this is going to be the option until we get some kind of arcane dagger that is probably going to be better than Bunny's Egg Plus, but until then, this is going to be a pretty good weapon. And Florid Knife Plus is also a pretty good weapon from Thief's Oath, and this is going to be giving you that flat Canto 1, so it is going to be useful for retreating even with a teleportation skill like Attack Speed Oath 4. And infantry units don't really have easy access to the Canto skills, and you can just stack up the true damage from the Finish 4 skill and also Special Spiral 4. And Special Spiral is going to be the way of piercing through the damage reduction by running a 2 cooldown special like Ruptured Sky or Moonbow. And you can also run her with Lethality, and you can pretty much give her the Flash Barrow and Defense Rest Smoke from Rearmed Plumeria, and also run a tempo skill so that you can easily trigger Lethality. She is going to be needing the external null follow-up support with this kind of build because you're going to be running tempo inner slot base so that she can get the null guard. And Florid Knife is actually pretty nice with the Defense Rest Smoke 3 with its Pathfinder, so usually you're not going to be seeing infantry units run this skill, but with Florid Knife it is something you can do. And then finally, if you want to stack up a lot of damage reduction, then you can run Bunny's Egg Plus, Remote Sparrow, and also Brash Assault 4. And Attack Speed Pledge is something that you can run so that you can trigger Lethality on your double. Unfortunately, she's not going to be having any kind of null guard, which is something that Chad has got in his weapon refined, but still, a similar build can work on her, and hopefully we get a really good arcane dagger. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps you tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as shard status against Gatekeeper. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.